Her chair looks funny with her moon background. I'm kind of without camera tonight because it messes with the video she's wanting to play.
Okay, so far I've got 6 slides on hurricane.
Okay.
So I'll work on this after, and then I will work on it over the weekend and have it ready for Thursday.
I caught an early Hurricane Hunter video movie, and it was like from the 50s. If I find it back, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, do that, because I was interested to find out. I didn't realize how randomly and haphazard that they actually got started. Did you know that the whole thing got started on a bet?
Bet that they could fly through it.
Well, apparently, I don't know what kind of a plan they are, but they were at Bryan Field in Texas in 43, and there was a Category 1 storm coming through. And I guess they had some British pilots that were there doing some training on the airfield. And I guess they had some, I think they called them AT-6 training planes that they were evacuating because of the storm, and the British questioned the construction of the airplanes. So a Colonel Duckworth took his navigator and took one of the planes and flew it through the eye of the storm, basically, I guess, just to prove that the planes could stand up to it. When the weather officer for the base found out, he made Colonel Duckworth take him back through the hurricane a second time. And I guess they used the information from both those flights to prove that they could do weather reconnaissance through storms safely.
Oh boy.
I need to do a sound test. Do I sound funny?
No, you sound good.
Okay, because I just broke a tooth off in the front.
Ouch.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had problems with my teeth for a while now, and I just bit down on something and it snapped in two. So.
I hate to hear that.
Me too, because why right in the front? I could deal with it back here, but I can't.
Like the sides or the back, but.
Yeah, where it's not noticeable. This is crazy.
Well, we're live and everybody sounds good and looks good.
Okay, we are live?
Yeah.
Okay. Embarrassing. So, good evening and welcome to the Jungle Chasers, where we try to bring you weather-related information, things happening currently, and just general information for your education with regard to weather. And I'm Patty. My call sign with Amateur Radio is KD0AEL. And I am the regional coordinator for Southwest Missouri Regional Skywarn. With me today is Franklin, KD0RSJ, and
I need to turn extra lights on.
there you go. He is the coordinator for Greene County, Missouri, Skywarn. And also with us, who you cannot see right now because he is behind the scenes helping us to run this video, is Steve, KA0SPM.
Hello.
Hello. So is Rodney going to be able to join us tonight as well?
I am not for sure. He is doing one of the National Weather Service online presentations, so I am not for sure when that is supposed to be over. He may possibly drop in after that's done.
Okay. He's taking the one that you and I took last week on summer weather hazards. Very informative.
Yes.
Yeah. It took about an hour and a half, so he's going to probably be a little bit late here. That's not a problem. So tonight, as for our topic, we talked about lightning last week. I thought I'd follow that up with summer heat. And Steve, you'll have to answer this because Franklin and I both know the answer. What is the #1 weather hazard killer?
The heat.
Yes, sir.
I just took a guess. Just a stab in the dark.
Yeah, heat, and then second was flooding, followed fairly closely by tornado, but still not what I think most people think.
Right. And some people would say tornadoes or hurricanes first.
Yeah.
No, across the U.S., it is summer heat. Now, in the Ozarks, our #1 killer is flooding. It's people driving into low water crossings, which are very prevalent here. So I thought it important to go over summer heat. We are getting into that time of year. And while today is very pleasant in the Ozarks, summer heat is upon us, and we're looking at several days stretch of 90s next week. So I thought it would be a good topic. Let me get my screen share. We'll just go ahead and get started with this baby. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. I'll keep it simple because I don't want to overwhelm people with a whole bunch of statistics. On the average, extreme heat is the deadliest type of weather in the United States, killing about 130 people each year, according to NOAA. Flooding is the second deadliest type of weather in the United States, an average of 81 deaths per year, while tornadoes follow closely behind in third place with an average of 70 per year. And that is from September of 2019. 2018 statistics show this pretty clearly with 136 heat-related deaths. So other summer hazards, as I said, lightning and flooding. Around here we see a lot of flash flooding with all of the rain that we have had this year. The ground is horribly saturated, and every little bit of rain we get goes into the creeks rather rapidly, causing rises. Now, it isn't just people driving into flooded areas. It's campers this time of year that camp along the riverbanks, and we've already had several water rescues related to camping this year. What makes the heat so dangerous? It's a combination of heat and humidity with long periods of heat, not knowing the signs and symptoms so that you can get yourself in to cool down and not get in trouble. And we spend more time outdoors, just period. It is the way we are in the summer. We get out, the sun's shining, there's lots of activities to participate in, and we want to. This slide is just a very typical summer pattern, isolated to scattered thunderstorms, high pressure moves in and holds us into this kind of pattern, and often with heat indices that range up into the 100s. And I know you've heard it say it is not the heat, it is the humidity. Well, actually, it's both. This chart shows air temperature on the left, pardon me, with humidity on the top. And if you combine those things with, let's just say, air temperature of 92 with a relative humidity of 60, which is not unusual around here, you have a heat index that could reach 105 degrees. Prolonged exposure in that kind of atmosphere can cause heat stroke or sunstroke, highly likely. Muscle cramps, heat exhaustion likely. Sunstroke, muscle cramps, heat exhaustion possible, fatigue possible. Even when it's 80 degrees outside, you can fatigue very easily. So heat becomes especially dangerous if it lingers for more than one day. Hot days and warm nights do not give our bodies time to cool down. Heat islands, in especially large cities, can intensify extreme hot weather and cause breathing problems, heat cramps, heat stroke, even may lead to illness or death. Things you can do: wear light, loose fitting clothing, drink a lot of water, don't wait till you're thirsty. Check on friends and family and neighbors during heat waves. Avoid unnecessary hard work or activities, um, especially if you're outside or in a building without air conditioning. Stay where it's cool or take breaks into cool areas. Limit your time outdoors in the heat of the day. What is heat exhaustion, or how does it show itself on the body? Headache, fatigue, weakness. You're very sweaty. Your whole body gets wet. Um, your blood pressure goes down. Your pulse goes up. You'll often have what they call a thready or very weak pulse, but it's very rapid. Um, you could have increased anxiety or confusion because your body is actually acting as it does if your anxiety goes up. So you may actually feel that as anxiety. Decreased fluid intake, increased heat exposure, and increased activity can bring this on. So 100, it can take your body temperature to about 102 degrees, and you know how bad that feels when you've got the flu or something. You do start feeling pretty yucky. Heat stroke, red skin. Your heartbeat is still increased, but it's a pounding heartbeat, not a thready, weak heartbeat. You can be vomiting, feel very, very weak. You can start having tremors and a bad headache. Some people even become unconscious. This just goes back over some of the symptoms. In addition, heat exhaustion, you can become very irritable, and your skin can start feeling cool and clammy. Um, what to do? For a child with symptoms of heat stroke, seek immediate medical care. I say with anybody with heat exhaustion, heat stroke, if you don't recover quickly when you cool down and start getting fluids, um, seek help, especially if you get into the signs of heat stroke. Teach kids to drink lots of fluid and during any activity, and they're going to complain, but make them take frequent breaks. We'll go into that here in just a second. So again, heat stroke is a medical emergency. Get help immediately. People can have a temperature of 105 or higher. Were you aware that children's body temperatures can rise up to 5 times faster than that of an adult? This is why we watch our kids. This is why we make them take frequent breaks. They can get into trouble and they may not be able to verbalize to you how they're feeling, or they might be having too much fun to want to take a break and push into those symptoms that are dangerous. And here's a pet peeve of mine, and I think many, many people never, and I repeat, never leave animals or children in your car. If the temperature outside is 75, nice, huh? Oh, we'll just leave the window cracked. We're going to be here 10 minutes. It'll be fine. No. In 10 minutes' time, the temperature inside that car can be 118 degrees. 94 outside, it can reach 145. And it can be accidental. I've seen cases where children are left in cars. They get out of their car seat straps. They get to playing around. They bump buttons. There was a tragic case down in Texas where a toddler hit the heat. The mother had left the air conditioner on, and the child was playing with the buttons and turned the heat on, and it killed both children that were in the car. Here's some statistics, and any child lost to this is too many. But child heat stroke deaths in the United States from 1998 to 2018 averaged 38 per year. And the graph shows the states where this is most predominant. How fast can the sun heat a car? I may have exaggerated a little bit while ago with the timing. This breaks it down. 80 degrees outside, 80 degrees inside, elapsed time, 0 minutes. In 10 minutes time, it's 99 degrees in that car. In 20 minutes time, 109. In an hour, 123. I've seen people bake cookies in hot cars on a summer day. So there's a video, if Steve can get the audio to work for us here. I'd very much like to share. If not, if you can copy this link from my page and go to this demonstrates what happens to our bodies when when left in a hot car. And I'll unshare my screen, Steve, so that you can, if I can.
There.
There.
All right, so we're going to give this a shot and see if we can hear it. Oh boy.
Quickly, a hot car can affect an adult body.
To do that, we're going to start with a blood pressure.
I teamed up with Narberth paramedics.
I can
in
hear it, I
Pennsylvania.
can't see it.
Right.
All done.
You won't.
Checks my body temperature.
Oh, okay.
98.3.
Okay.
Textbook perfect.
All right.
And hooks me up to a heart monitor before we lock ourselves in this minivan.
I'm wired up. It's about 90 degrees outside. Let's go.
It didn't take long to feel the heat.
Okay.
Cozy. You're up to 100.8 already.
Wow. So I went from 98.3 to 100.8
Yep.
in like a minute.
The temperature inside the van climbing more than 10 degrees in a matter of 20 minutes.
I mean, we're just dripping sweat everywhere.
Yeah. This is extremely uncomfortable.
29 minutes in,
There's another PVC. So we're up to 2.
Paul, checking the monitor, notices I've had 2 irregular heartbeats, a sign my heart is feeling the heat.
105.
Wow.
So at this point, most children would not be sustaining. We would have a critically ill child.
My body temperature of 105, proven to be deadly for children, so we play it safe and call it.
Opening the door.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. Let me get that fixed. Can't get to it.
Well. Okay.
There we go.
Continue. There we go. And so, moving right along here. So, whoop. So avoid the heat if possible. Take plenty of breaks. Dress in loose-fitting, light-colored clothing. Wear hats. Use sunscreen. It says on here SPF 15 or higher. I suggest SPF 45 or higher. Make it one that is waterproof so that you don't sweat it off or swim it off. Drink plenty of water. Keep hydrated. Reapply sunscreen. Avoid alcohol and caffeinated drinks. It says soda, but I believe the intention there is caffeinated drinks because both can dehydrate you. And always check your back seat. This slide goes back over heat disorders of sunburn, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. Remembering heat stroke is a high body temperature, 105, 106 or above, hot, dry skin, rapid, strong pulse, possibly unconscious, and the victim will likely not sweat. And just a few more reminders. Maybe the more you see it, the more you'll do it. That would be my hope here. Because we want everybody to get out and have fun in summer weather. And we don't want them to be sick or worse. And so that's my little brief on heat and how it affects us and what we should do. You guys have any questions for me?
I have comments.
I think I do.
All right, go with the comments.
Well, I gotta mention that having parented a couple of boys, we were out in hot weather quite a lot, and we were in a vehicle that did not have air conditioning. So it wasn't that it didn't work; it just wasn't built with it. We generally were out already in the heat to start with, so you have a bit of time for your body to get used to it. And secondly, we were generally, when I took them out on a hot day, we were headed to the creek to swim.
Right.
So the creek absolutely sucks your body temperature away. I mean, the water, if you sit down in the water, it just, it doesn't matter how hot it is outside, your body temperature is going to be lowered amazingly. You know what I mean? And
right.
Of course, they had plenty to drink, but they didn't keep still. They went 100 miles an hour as all day, and they were exhausted, and they were still mad because we were going home. So, there's some bits to this. This is not designed to take away from those fun times as a kid of swimming and enjoying the outdoors, because that's not what that's talking about. This is about...
That's not what I'm saying. This is about doing it sensibly.
Right. And
I
think, other than Franklin, we kind of all know as adults, we've been doing the kid raising thing a while. There's times when letting them just go and play with no particular routine is the best thing you can do. So that's my comment.
Play is important, but I still say, bring them in, reapply the sunscreen, make them get a drink.
Oh, yeah.
They can get in trouble faster than even playing in the cold water.
They got that stuff 45 that'll stick to them no matter what they do, right? In the water.
That's what I was talking about, that SPF 45 that's waterproof. You still have to reapply it every now and then. The number on the bottle indicates the time that it's effective. So SPF 15, do you want to stop every quarter hour and reapply? I don't think so. You want it strong enough that it's going to stick with you a while and not just sweat off. Having raised a kid myself, it's not always easy to slow them down and stop them, but hey, if they don't want to stop for a drink, you tease them in with a popsicle. Hey, come get a popsicle. Oh yeah, they're all about that, right?
Oh yeah, this doesn't have to be drudgery or doldrums. It can be a lot of fun.
Right.
And I can remember times with a little plastic pool and a garden hose in the backyard, and it was hot. Oh, it was hot, but it was fun, and everybody was cool, including the parents.
Right. Right. So
But
yeah,
that's kind of my
intention is not
rant.
to take the fun away. It's to do it sensibly. Don't mow your yard at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the hot heat of the sun unless you absolutely have to. Wait till cooler in the evening. Your
Or
favorite
first
show
thing in
might
the
be
morning.
on. Yeah, or first thing in the morning. TiVo
I've-
your favorite show and watch it later. Do it when it's cooler out.
I've done it, though, because I had to.
Yeah.
And there are ways to be. You don't want to be out in the direct sun. You want to have some sun. You want to have a big brimmed hat. You've seen the big straw hats that go out. I don't want to call it Chinese hats, but maybe like the Vietnamese wore but they got big floppy garden hats. Keep yourself out of the sun. There you go. She's got one.
I almost got one here about a week or so ago, except for on sale it was like $30-40. So I'd hate to see how much it was. When
Yeah.
it wasn't on sale, it was supposed to be up to 45% off.
Right. And like she said, wear loose clothes to keep the heat away from your skin directly. And I say this because when I was young, not probably as hot as we have here in the Ozarks, but I lived up in Iowa, and we had to do farm work. We had to bale hay,
Oh, yeah. Well,
This is my favorite hat. It was my father's. He
Mhm.
wore it out to do yard work all the time. Can't find them like this anymore. It's got the sun shield on it. You can look up and see what's going. But
Now, see, I had one that my grandpa had bought me a long time ago from the fair, and I believe it said Ozark Empire Fair on it. It had kind of like a cloth ribbon type thing that went around the top part of it. But for the front quarter of the brim where your eyes would be, it had cloth over it, and the rest of it was all open, so it still breathed good, but you didn't have the little specks of sunlight coming through the holes in the straw weave getting in your face either.
right.
I wish I had a hat like that. I almost, like I was telling Steve whenever you were gone getting your hats, I almost thought about a week and a half ago I was going to buy one. Except for it turned out that the up to 45% off price was still about $30-40.
Oh.
So I did not purchase it.
Right. Well, there's
Yeah, I don't.
there's
have a
less
clue what
expensive
these would
versions.
run.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I figured being the brand, it was Panama Jack, so I figured
Oh,
the
yeah.
price was going to be pricey. They didn't have any prices actually listed on the tag, so we took it up to the cash register and we were like, no, we won't be taking this.
Now, I'm gonna say, probably style might not be a decision factor there. It's the cool.
Oh, it was just, well, like I said, it was the style hat that I was wanting. It was a straw hat, and it had the cloth on the front part of the underside of the front part of the brim. But I'll find something somewhere else that's like maybe $15-20
other-
without being on sale.
other recreational activities might be if you're a fisherman. I've been out on Table Rock Lake when it was that hot. We figured out early on that the fishing just ain't no good in the midday, and so we spent our time. We found shady spots where the trees overhung, and just tied the boat up and listened to baseball on the boat radio. And don't let anybody tell you, but a boat radio does attract fish. I don't know what it is about that, but the Cardinal baseball would bring the fish to the boat.
Especially
So
if they were winning, right?
yeah, even the fish that were skittish, they said, boy, like when we fished in Canada, the Northerns, they'd come right to the boat. They'd hang around the boat, and it's like, you are a bunch of curious, goofy critters, So, but I would say, most folks have this, you work in an office somewhere and it's air conditioned. There's some of us that worked outdoors for years, and there's a reason why when you see utility trucks out there, they've always got the big orange igloos on them,
Yeah. And even people who may have some other conditions that they might not normally think about that might present an issue during hot weather, like my grandfather on my mom's side of the family. He was in the Army. He was a medic. He was stationed up at I believe it was a radar site in Alaska. He got out, kind of got lost, was out in cold temperatures for a couple days, got a lot of frostbite along his cheeks, his nose, his earlobes, and kind of on the back of his hands. Years later, a lot of that developed into skin cancer, and he had to have that removed. So, doctor, I think even some of it was even on his forearms. Even if it's like 90 degrees outside, big, broad brim hat to keep that off the ears and the face and the nose, long sleeve shirt to keep it off the forearms and stuff. I couldn't do it. I'd have to stay in, because if I wear long sleeve shirt and like long pants, even sometimes in the winter, I'm sweating my rear end off. But
my father
he
was like that, long sleeves. He wore the blue work shirts and this hat or one like it, and he still wound up with some cancers on the top of his bald head and on the back of his ear that were treated over time. Yeah. He never wore sunscreen. He worked out a lot. He was a painter contractor, painted homes inside and out, did a lot of repair work, but he was outside a lot. Plus he gardened. The folks always had a huge garden. He was outside all the time. Yeah, I cannot wear long sleeves. I'm horribly uncomfortable in them, and have suffered some really bad sunburns along the way, 2nd-degree burns. On my legs and on my arms from being out fishing, and I won't leave long sleeves on. And twice wound up with heat exhaustion. I still don't tolerate heat very well since that.
Yeah. And we've talked about it. It's a cumulative thing. Once you get it, it's easier for you to get it again the next time.
Yeah, I believe so. I've never looked for that kind of a study, but I believe that's true, because I have become much more sensitive to the heat, and I'm very mindful. I start feeling really sick pretty quick, even in a hot office at work. I get to feeling ill. I get a bad headache. The top of my head feels like I could probably poach eggs on it.
I get dizzy. And I found, I think in the last couple years, I've noticed, I think it's the super high humidity almost a little bit more than the high heat, because we had a few days last summer or the first part of spring before I was inside at the recycling center, where it was like 90 degrees outside, and I was just dreading going in that day because I knew it was going to be hot back there. But it was like I think that it was a rare thing where like the humidity was like in the mid 50s, and I actually did pretty darn good throughout the day. So
there, like I said,
sometimes
there's
with that high humidity, but the temperature's like maybe 70s, but the humidity's like 70s, maybe low 80s, almost seems to affect me worse anymore.
there's ways to deal, and I thought about, because I spent the great majority of my life working outside, and so it didn't matter if it was 100 out or if it was 10 below, and I've done both, 20 below.
Add Rodney in.
Oh, cool.
Okay. It kind of was you were out in it, and like on the hot days, you start in with not so hot, and it warms up through the day, so you're kind of like that frog in boiling water.
Yeah.
So it's not so terrible. Hi, Rodney.
Hey, Rodney.
Hey, Rodney.
So, it's kind of one of those, it depends on how you got to do it, and I had to.
Yeah.
There wasn't a choice in it.
And whenever you're used to it, it makes a little bit of a difference than like if you're someone like me that you're used to mostly staying in air conditioning most of the time, and then you have to be out in 90, 95 degree weather. It's going to take a bigger toll quicker than someone who's used to it. And like you said, the gradual heat up throughout the day and everything, they're going to be more acclimated to that.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if you spend the day, and if you remember how it was at Teletech, whenever it rained, we froze inside, and you were probably just right. But because it increased the efficiency of the air conditioners, but you go outside and it's just like, it's terrible. But if you're outdoors, like days that I have here, that I've got a bunch of stuff going in the yard and such, and I'm out, I get hot, everything's fine. I walk in the house and she touches me and it's like burns her fingers.
He is a furnace. When he worked in the foundry, I could not sleep close to him because he's thermal. He just radiates heat. You were talking about the humidity more than the heat. I brought that up.
Yeah.
It's the combination that drives those temperatures up. That's why they provide a heat index for us. I remember the first year I lived in Texas. Of course, I'm not acclimated to that kind of weather. Not from here. And I was going from hot to cold to hot to cold to hot to cold, and that hot, it was 90 degrees outside with a 75 to 80% humidity. Well, let's see what that is, 106, 109 outside.
Yeah.
And I was going into a building that was super cooled, taking supplies back and forth in the heat of the day, about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And I remember that third trip in, the first time I made that trip, and the third trip in, I passed out.
Yeah,
Hitting
that's
that
another
cold air.
that's another thing that I don't think a lot of people realize. They're like, well, I'm going in and out of air conditioning, but if you're not spending a lot of time either in the air conditioning or a lot of time in the heat, you're just spending a short time back and forth between each one, that's just as bad because you're getting those huge swings and your body doesn't know what to get used to, and it kind of goes haywire.
I was going from 65 to 110,
Yeah.
It was like trying to slam on the brakes when I walked in the door, and it did.
Yeah.
Slam my brakes on good.
That would be a good analogy. That's kind of the stress that you're putting on your car. It's like you just slam on the accelerator, wait 10, 15 seconds, slam on the brake, slam on the accelerator, then slam on the brake.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if we have any other further questions on the heat, But I had a topic that I was going to bring up for a discussion, and this is going to be another one of those 5-minute rants for everybody. And because Rodney's getting his supper, he gets to have his supper, and he gets to rant last. And so, unless there's something else with the heat we need to talk about, are we all good?
I'm
I
good.
think we've covered it quite a bit.
Rodney, what stood out to you? We talked about heat tonight. What stood out to you in what they talked about in their presentation with regard to the heat tonight?
I think the biggest thing is, when they issue a heat advisory or a heat warning, there's two different things there. When you're dealing with a heat advisory, I mean, it's going to get hot. It's going to get hot quick, and you need to be aware of. You basically just need to have an escape plan. What happens if your car breaks down, or you're in a situation where you're in extreme heat for long periods of time? You don't have water to hydrate yourself, things like that. So, even if water is hot and tepid, it's better than not having anything at all. And so, you should probably have some kind of reserves in your car, especially in this situations like that. Excuse me, when they start talking about the heat warnings, they were asking questions like, what does that mean to you when we issue you a heat warning? And in my mind, I'm going, well, I got to stay cool at every cost. I mean, if you're talking about excessive heat, you don't need to be outside for long periods of time. You need to avoid sun exposure as much as possible. It's going to get hot. I mean, they're basically just saying there's no cool area outside. I mean, not even in the shade a lot of times. So, you got to deal, and you got to be able to, manage those different changes. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me. When I hear them talk about that, you've got to be aware.
Those are good points, and I did not bring up the heat advisory or the heat warning in my presentation, so excellent.
Thank you.
We had, luckily when I was forced to work in it, I'm gonna say forced because it was a job I chose. I mean, it was a good job. But luckily we had a company that had a big ice maker, and we could fill up our water containers, our big igloos for the day. And the only thing that I probably had the biggest wish of is that I wished we had a well. And when you got down into places like Battlefield working, when you were working, I never passed up a chance to fill up my water jug out of a spigot somewhere down there, because they did not put the amount of chlorine in the water in Battlefield that they do here in the city.
Yeah.
And it was so much better. But you take what you get, and that didn't happen often, so I would cherish those times. But you're kind of stuck out there. You got to do what you got to do, and work is work. So I'm going to start in my rant, and my rant has a technical side to it. And I know that some of you have heard this before, but I think I'm going to keep bringing it up until either we completely decide it's never going to happen, or we're going to act on this. And I'm going to start out a little tiny bit, and this is for some of the non-technical that might be listening. We have a DMR system. And DMR is a digital form of radio. I know that at least 3 of us in this chat have DMR radios. In fact, in our family, we've got 2 and a hotspot. We have a Skywarn for Southwest Missouri DMR talk group. 31297, I think. I have to look it up, but I'm going to say that we need to look into ways to utilize that as a method of communication. Not to replace our current nets, but to augment. And I'm going to tell you at least one time where Patty and I were out where it would have been very helpful to have, because we were very far away from any repeater that we could get into in the car radio, but yet both of us had AT&T data, and we could have used that in a hotspot with that radio to communicate back to, well, pretty much anywhere you want to go, anywhere in the world. Now, we were streaming data, not streaming, but we were reporting what we were seeing to the Weather Service while we were out there. But it certainly was not done via radio. It was done via social media.
Gotcha.
So this is my rant, is I think we need to look into ways to utilize that to make us better, make us stronger, to do what we have signed up to do, and that is serve our served agency better. So that's my rant. I know it wasn't 5 minutes, but I'm going to let everybody else have their rant time.
Well, let's throw another factor into what happened out there. We did have radio communications for a time, and Walnut Grove got hit by the system that we had gotten hit with, that we were reporting damage back on at Lockwood. And when Walnut Grove got hit, that repeater went down. There's no backup power. So our link to the main repeater was done. We had no options. While I'm not a fan of DMR, it's a big learning curve, and I haven't had time to mess with it. I tried my radio one time, and it failed in my office, which I don't have a hotspot at work, so I was somewhat dependent on analog with that. But there was a link to Cox at the time, and I could not get the radio to work. So there's still limitations depending on where you're at. But he's right, in a hotspot in the car, we'd have been good to go. So
now, of course, day-to-day operation, we still have a lot of folks out there that only have analog, and we're going to serve those folks. We're not going to change that. But I'm just talking about the addition to. Yeah.
We didn't have Zello at the time either. So.
Well, I guess that would be my question, is most of the digital modes, and I'm pretty for sure I'm safe in saying this, unless you have a hotspot and some way to get data to that hotspot, or unless you are within range of a repeater that's set up for that system, unless you go to the analog side of it, which I know most of the radios will still transmit analog. But as far as the digital side of it, you can't just transmit digital like simplex, can you? I mean, it has to somehow go through some kind of a data stream, doesn't it?
No, you can do simplex. You can do DMR.
So I could just do DMR from a handset of mine to a handset of yours, and have nothing else in between.
Right. Now, because the radios are a little bit more awkward to set up, then we would have had to plan that setup ahead of time, and it wouldn't be difficult to come up with a Skywarn DMR channel that centers around 146.55, which is accepted as the Skywarn simplex frequency.
Okay.
It wouldn't be that
so
difficult to do.
It would just be exactly like analog simplex then, except for it's a digital signal.
Right. The only thing that DMR does on that is it limits you to about 90 miles because of the nature of the digital signal.
Because, see, I was under the impression that pretty much to use the digital side of it, it had to somehow go through the internet.
Well, there's another thing that's tied into that too. If you are in the vicinity of a repeater, you can use a feature called Talk Around.
Yeah.
And what that does is you're basically using, and I may be off on this, but those who are a little smarter about this can correct me if I'm wrong. You basically use the transmit frequency, or is it the receive frequency?
The output side of the repeater.
It's the what?
The output frequency of the repeater.
Right, the output. So basically, you can use that repeater as kind of almost like a bounce. So someone hearing you on the other end, that's going to extend your range. But you're not necessarily talking through the repeater. You're using it as more of like a relay, if you will. I guess that's the best way to explain.
So I guess if I'm understanding it correctly, it would be similar to the system for like APRS, where you send out your signal and it finds kind of like the closest, not necessarily repeater, but like node or whatever, and then sends that on to their server. If I'm
you have to deliberately program it for that repeater frequency. It's not necessarily searching. It knows based on what you're on. It's just you're not utilizing the repeater function of the repeater, I guess is the best way to put it.
It's not putting your signal through the repeater per se. It's just retransmitting it like straight without transmitting your signal across the repeater.
Right. You're essentially not using a talk group or a channel at that point. You're just talking independently. Am I right? Correct? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So the thing is that it's actually more like doing simplex on the output with analog. So the repeater doesn't respond to it.
The reason I was asking that, because like a situation like me, and I realize I'm a different situation than most everyone else, but I'm thinking there might be other people that's maybe in the same situation as I am. For cellular service, I have a pay-as-you-go, month-to-month prepaid plan. It's not with any of the major cell phone carriers. It's not with Verizon. It's not with AT&T. It's Straight Talk, which uses their networks. But I found out recently, because whenever I had read before, it just said Straight Talk does not offer mobile hotspot. Well, I recently found out that they do, so I guess maybe this is a little bit of my rant, maybe. They do offer mobile hotspot if you pay for the $55 a month plan, but it's only if your phone service goes through Verizon, or I think it's T-Mobile is the other one that they use. If your phone is using AT&T's network, you get no mobile hotspot. Even though your phone's capable of it, you just don't get it through their network. So, like a situation like you were talking about, unless I could like find a repeater that had DMR and I could get in through its internet connection, I still wouldn't be able to get in unless there was someone close enough with another DMR radio.
Well, the odd thing, I did this up at the fairgrounds. I used my phone Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah.
And my little DMR hotspot is designed whenever it doesn't see my home Wi-Fi, it connects to my phone Wi-Fi. And I don't even have to set it up, it just does that.
Yeah, and see, I could too, likely. The phone likely supports it. It's just my service provider, for whatever reason, they decide to make it available for 2/3 of their customers and not for the other third. And I happen to be in the other third that they don't make it available for. So, I mean, it's not like the system doesn't support it, because I know AT&T does support it on phones that are directly through them on their network. It's just Straight Talk doesn't provide it for AT&T. And I'm sure it's some kind of contractual, probably likely a fee someone doesn't want to pay, and that's why it's not offered. But
AT&T's been funny about that all along.
Yeah.
I have a question. So if we had the DMR radio in the car, one of them, could we theoretically take the dongle that I have that's BNC to SMA and connect to 2-meter radio to extend the range?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a radio like any other. It's just that the
So-
format is digital as opposed to analog.
Right. So that 5/8 wave antenna would then give extra boost to the signal.
It would. Yeah. Now, they do actually sell now. Ham Radio 2.0 had a stream about the new DMR Mobile, which is a mobile radio, and I haven't looked into it at all, but it looks pretty promising. And so you could have essentially the digital mode in your vehicle. It's mixed mode, so you can do both. So you could have analog channels in there as well as the digital channels.
Gotcha.
Now, are the mobile units 10,000 channels or whatever, like the DMRs, or?
Oh yeah, same thing. It's basically like the handheld, except that it's got more power output and it's a mobile. So, looks promising. I haven't looked into it. I don't know much about them, so I'm gonna see. But
It's something we would have to put to a test
Yeah.
before accepting it, but, you know, it seems reasonable as a talk around. But we would have to make sure that the net controls had the capability of receiving it, or it's useless.
Yeah.
well, and
So-
that's just it. We're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to prove its worth. And is there something that we can do as a talk around that we wouldn't do on a regular net to provide a better service to the weather service?
Now, we do have a Zello channel now for Southwest Missouri, Southwest Missouri Skywarn.
Yep.
That most of the net controls have on when they're running the net. If they don't, they've got somebody else monitoring. It's been something I've had to train myself to turn on, but we have had spotters in the field, especially those that go great distances to somewhat chase in the local area, who have utilized that when their radios are not close enough to a repeater to get in. And it also now has the capability of sending text and pictures. So, you know, we would have to then, as net controls, forward those on or ask them to, if they've got enough data to do that, if they would please send them into the contact email for NOAA, but we can get the report in while they're waiting on the pictures. So
it looks like we need to do a study of capability.
yeah, we do.
Well, a feasibility study, I think, is what you might call that.
So tomorrow
Probably.
you and I are going to the north and west a bit.
Yep.
I have not run that radio other than the one time, but with a little talk through, maybe we could give it a test tomorrow.
You know, we need to have someone. I need to, on mine, I think yours is the same way. I've kind of locked out the 685 because it didn't work. Don't know why it didn't work, but it should be fabulous. They're using a Quantar VHF, which is one of the high end, way higher compared to us with a Pi Star. But we need somebody here to be able to chat to,
Right.
because making a call on that channel doesn't mean much.
Not if there's not an answer.
Right.
Well, I don't have a DMR radio, so it would be a moot point for me to answer one way or the other.
Unless, would he
Unless
have
someone
to have
let
a
me
hot
borrow.
spot? Would he have? Okay, somebody's radio's loud.
That's a problem.
So, would he have to have a hotspot to respond back to us if we left one of our radios with him?
No, we would have to just have it programmed for 685 because that's the closest repeater to him. I think he could get into Cox okay. I don't know if tomorrow's going to be the best day for a test.
Okay.
We'll have to pick another time when we can do. I'm sure it'll work. I mean, I don't have any doubts that a hotspot in the car is going to work from Golden City. You know, if you're in Golden City chasing, what repeater are you on? What repeater is linked in?
3-3.
No. Would it be the 3.5 in Joplin, or are they connected to the one up there by Stockton? El Dorado Springs.
I thought they had to go through the one at Walnut Grove.
So we don't have anything really up in the northwest. Lamar or Nevada is not connected.
No. But we were able to get in from Lockwood. I don't see why we couldn't get in from Golden City.
Maybe we'll just try that tomorrow. See what we can do. Under good conditions, because we're going to have a week of sunshine. So, anyway, any more rant? Rodney, you got a rant?
I mean, I don't specifically have a rant against DMR other than, you know, maybe scolding myself in respects to, you know, I was gung ho about the whole DMR thing. I was hungry. I wanted to know more. I jumped in with both feet, and I think I almost kind of burnt myself out as much as I put into it, only to set it aside, knowing that I have access to, you know, the trusty analog. But you're right. I mean, I've invested my time. I've invested the money to get what I have. I need to get back into it. There's probably a lot that's changed just in that time that I've been in it. I'm sure my radio needs reprogrammed and everything else that goes along with that. So, I mean, I can always kind of renew that spark of interest. And I'm not saying I'm not interested in it. I'm just saying, you know, as things, you know, gradually move in different directions, I think DMR would be very important to have. Excuse me. I know that that's something that's going to be part of our club here very soon, and we need to just kind of jump into the aspect of using that. Of course, you know, if we're going to put our efforts into having a DMR repeater at some point, it needs to be used, and just the same, whatever capacity it's in, we're going to try to use it. So I think what Steve and Patty and even Franklin, you know, I think all together we can revive that, and if anything, be the voice of, as far as DMR is concerned, for our club and for whatever, you know, Greene County or even Skywarn. Because I mean, as far as Skywarn is concerned, we really don't hear a lot of traffic from the DMR side, just because nobody really thinks to probably use it. I know we've used it there's several times, but there is a talk group that's out there, and it's really just a matter of it getting used. So,
well, honestly, Brad approached me if I thought he should get on there and use it this spring. He said, the times I've done it, there have been no check-ins. Well, a couple of issues with that, but up front, no check-ins, no reports, no feedback that people were listening. And I said, let's just let it go for now. And I think, without giving it any promotion, there probably wouldn't have been very many people there or even thinking
Probably not.
to listen there. So we probably do need to do some research. And if we find this to be a viable talk around, even just for the net controls to communicate, which again, we've got Zello for that. But, and that's been helpful. We got some checks and balances
Right.
we need to do.
Now,
Gotcha.
the one thing I will be in argument of, in favor of, is we do not do the same thing that we do on the 4.9, where it's more outgoing than it is incoming. I guess my personal does not reflect the views of the Weather Service, maybe, is that we should never push aside an incoming report to read a warning. Ever. But that being said, it seems that the 4.9 is that channel you go to when they read all the warnings. And I've
had to tell people to slow down, take a break, and specifically ask for warnings. I have had to do that. They can start coming in, piling up, and you have to take time to give people a chance to get in. It's hard sometimes.
So, if we can increase the amount of incoming reports because of accessibility, personally, I think that's going to be a good thing, because, I've been that black sheep that's always asked the question, who are we serving here? There have been some way in the past, net controls that I think was more happy to hear their voice going out as a warning reader as opposed to, I got a report. Wait a minute, I got a flood report to read. No, that doesn't work. That's bad. But like I said, my views don't reflect.
We've got top-notch people as net controls now. At least we don't have a net control saying, "Oh, there's nothing going on at 65 and 60," and there's this horrible deluge and 60-mile-an-hour winds going through there at the time.
And a tornado warning shortly after. Yeah. Or hiding under his desk.
You know the time I'm talking about. So, Mr. Net Control, we are seeing a persistent lowering to the south of our location, with questionable inflow. It was dark. We're seeing this in the lightning. What are you seeing? Oh, just some storm level rotation.
Okay.
It was a tornado. Weather Service picked up on it, issued the warning. It was probably, 15, 20 miles south of us?
Right. Just to the east of Ozark when we picked it up, and it went into Sparta. But, that being said, all things considered, of all the bad stuff that's happened in the past, our job is to serve the served agency. If their desire is for us to read warnings on the 4.9, we add in that additional factor. We've got more channels incoming than we do outgoing, which I think is always going to be good.
Well, let me interject something here, and I'm sure Patty can correct me how she wants it done. But as far as warnings are concerned, when you're reading off a warning and someone jumps in and says, I've got a report, you've got to almost balance the need versus the situation, right? So we've got 2 tornado warnings that just hit. and someone wants to report, would you put a report ahead of those 2 tornado warnings, or would you read the tornado warning and then immediately get back to that report? I mean, that's why I'm trying to kind of balance. What is your thoughts on something like that?
If you're watching chat and those warnings are coming out as that person's talking, you take their traffic first. You don't know, you know, and you don't know what they're reporting that might even be related to what you're about to do. And now you might cut them short. You get all the details that you need and say, and now I need a break to read 2 tornado warnings. But I would get the report, because we don't know that their information might not be related or to another event. We've had 7 tornadoes being warned at the same time. So the chances of getting information from multiple areas is there. And they're important. And that is our job, to relay that. So
I mean,
Can
you're
I
gonna
say
have
what I was just thinking?
okay.
Well, I was thinking what I would do, and kind of, I sort of have kind of done this before. If I've read several warnings in a row, or watches, whatever, and someone, you know, I've got a report, okay, I'm probably going to go ahead and let them go. Because, you know, I've been reading 2, 3 things in a row. If it's a tornado watch, or warning, or even a thunderstorm warning, if it's got a PDF on it, I might be more inclined to say something like, are you reporting a funnel cloud, wall cloud, or tornado? If not, can I read this tornado warning and then I'll get your report? If they say, you know, break, I have a report of a tornado, then I know, okay, they're reporting a tornado. So maybe even if it is a tornado warning, I'm going to go ahead and take their report. And then, like you said, if it's something that I can kind of get the basic information, read the warning, then get the rest of the information afterwards, maybe do that. I mean, does any of that sound reasonable?
So my take here, we each have a different style when we're on the radio. We each have something that's in our comfort zone in the way we handle things. And so you go with what feels right to you, because if you don't, that's when you start making mistakes. That's when you start missing things and you get tripped up. Exactly. Yeah. So Rodney, my answer to you is what feels right to you in the moment, given that situation, is what you need to do. Don't try to overthink it. That makes sense?
Yeah, and I'm reading into it a little deeper than it necessarily be, because I mean like what Steve said and everybody else, I mean the sentiment here is we need to take reports as soon as possible. That's what the National Weather Service wants, right? I mean that's what our primary job is, to ensure that communication is getting directly to the National Weather Service as soon as possible.
Ground truth is our safety is number 1. Ground truth is number 2.
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, and like I said, it's a balancing act. And you got somebody that says, "Well, it's raining outside." Okay, we get that, but there's a tornado on the ground somewhere, and we need to get that information somewhere.
So when you tone the repeater, and there's 3 ways to do this: when a watch is issued, when tornado warnings are issued, and for a training net. You get a tornado warning, even if it's on a thunderstorm watch or one of those we might have pop-up shower kind of days, you tone the repeater and you say, we are in active mode due to a tornado in this area. We will be taking emergency traffic only. And maintain that, be firm with that. I think there's a couple of people that still struggle with asserting themselves. You are net control. You're the boss. What you say
You're God.
You're God.
Or you are this particular repeater's radio god.
I'm Rod.
You are the highest entity in amateur radio at the moment. You are at the helm.
I smite you. I smite you.
Right.
You're doing okay. I smite you.
Execute.
So,
Hey, you were
hey,
on
there we go.
there.
So what I'm seeing here is that we do need to make a program of sorts, explaining net operations, for those who may be brand new, because I know we've got some brand new people.
Yeah.
And I believe that responsibility was given. Yeah. So put a deadline on me, and let's just make it possible. Let's do it next week. That way I know I need to get my act together and get something put together. I've got a couple of business presentations I got to do too, so I'll just throw it all in with that.
I've got a PowerPoint I can share with you, and I think a document to share with you to help you put that together.
I would love anything you can pass on.
Because I did just that at the symposium last year.
Yeah.
And so I will provide you with that, and you do with it what you will. I put a huge emphasis on some things that Jim had shared with me back in 2008. And it does need a brush up, but a lot of what's in there is valid. And I will I will cherish that forever, that he gave that to me. So anyway, yeah, I'll get that to you after we get off here, or I will forget.
I have been wondering, and being you had mentioned it, and I know whatever plans may or may not have been probably got dashed because of COVID-19, but is there any thoughts about maybe Symposium Mark II in 2021?
There is a possibility. We had talked about doing it this year.
Mm-hmm.
We may even, depending on how things work out next week with the IWT meeting, we may offer this internet-based. I love to get together. I love to see faces and put faces and names together and call signs. But to reach out to a portion of people that might not be able to travel, and to have this available online afterward is invaluable.
It is nice. I think it seems more personable, want more one-on-one. You have it right there on your screen instead of maybe trying to watch it, of course, on a larger screen, but that may be 20, 30 foot across the room. It's right there, right in front of you. And I mean, the stuff that I have participated in, I have liked very much. Particularly the GoToWebinar stuff that the Weather Service has done. I've really liked that format.
That format is great, and that, I believe, is what they will be using next week. So
yeah,
I have taken Tuesday off because I will be working till 12:30 on Monday night and getting up bright and early to participate in that. I don't think I'll be in any shape to go to work that evening. So,
well, it is nice the fact that you can sort of show up 10 minutes before, walk from the bedroom to the desk, start the thing. They're in my house shoes. Whenever I get done, I just walk into the kitchen, get a cup of tea.
Run to the bathroom and not miss anything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, particularly with these headphones. So, yeah.
As long as you mute.
Really?
As long as I mute, and Steve Runnels doesn't pick that time to ask, Franklin, what do you think about that situation?
Just a
And
minute.
he would.
Hang
He
on.
would.
Yeah. Well, Steve, if you don't mind the echo in here, I can get right straight to the point on that.
Oh my.
Yay. So I've made an observation here. Rodney and I are really doing a great promo for Heil Sound here tonight. You with your boom and your Heil mic, and me with my shirt. You've got a yeah. Here you go. There.
It's my only piece.
This program
but
has been brought to you by Heil Sound.
And then I'm sitting
We
here
are
with
fans.
a hand-sanded Calrad microphone from the 50s.
From Bob himself. So you need to show that casement that you got. Yeah, the purple one, which is so Bob. Yes, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I want that on my desk.
Do you know he even had a purple Weber kettle grill?
I did not.
Really?
I figured he had someone custom paint it for him. He said no. He said if you look around enough, you can find them.
That's awesome.
I loved his
Him and
purple
his
sneakers. I
Converse.
wish they could have got a pair. Those are
Purple
just great.
Converse.
So you,
So-
Patty, you've been kicked out of trivia again for the week.
Have I? I sent you one that I thought was great.
Yeah,
Did
that's
you not
why.
get that?
Ah.
Oh, that's why, because you're using my trivia this week.
You're kicked out.
I need to get with Jordan and find out if I'm still doing the net tomorrow or if he's doing it because I did it for him last week. I don't mind to do it. I just need to know.
So I have good news to share, and not a rant, but I've got good news to share, and then a little bit of a rant. So, as of Monday, the state of Missouri will be open. Our governor spoke today. I listened to the press conference, and now that being said, that's kind of exciting news and kind of scary news. But he has the confidence that Missouri has in place to take what comes. And that was the whole point of the shutdown, was to get things in place to take what comes with this pandemic. Each city, county, township entity has the authority to set their own rules. Tomorrow, we will find out what our Springfield Greene County Health Department has to say, because they are on a 5-phase program of bringing us back online. So I don't know if they're going to stick with that, or if, given the fact that there were no new cases, or one case out of 146 that were exposed at that beauty shop, besides the two beauticians that one had exposed the other, if they do something with masking instead, because they found that the masks were effective. They did say that last week. So kind of exciting and kind of scary that the state is opening up again. And so it says a lot for Missouri for shutting down early and for working hard to make sure we have our own resources and we're not outsourced to the point that we're dependent and can't get anything. So I've seen a lot of local distilleries that have stepped up the game and they're getting products on the shelves for us. I even walked into Walgreens tonight and I had bought from Menards online some masks, disposables, but Walgreens had them right there in the line when you're going to check out. So even those are available to the public again. Paper products are back on the shelves in aplenty. You don't have to show up before the store opens and get in line anymore to get your TP. So you know, our hospitals are standing there going, we are ready for this. Testing has stepped up to 10,000 a day in the state of Missouri capability. So it is exciting. I'm glad that most people are going to get a chance to get back to somewhat new normal.
It is exciting. For me, it's still kind of a little bit of cautious wait and see.
I did some checking today. I had purchased tickets to an air show in Kansas City in September, and it's all systems go. And honey, just to inform you, I did go ahead and extend our hotel reservation to Friday night so that we're not exhausted on Saturday driving up early. We could drive up Friday, crash, get up early, go catch the bus, and get to where we need to go. Now, that being said, I've also put in a request to the air show on where's the best parking for people who are mobility challenged. There are 4 options. So 2 of them are a little pricey. One of them is $100 a car, which is outrageous. That's more than I spent on our tickets, and I got special tickets for the photography area. And the other's $65, but they're supposed to be on site.
Yikes.
So I'm waiting for my answer.
Well, guys, I want to say, as far as the live stream, does anything else, anyone have anything else they'd like to add for our viewers this evening? We haven't had
I don't think so.
any chat.
I've not seen anything in the chat.
Well, I guess since Patty is, giving us good news, the only thing I can do here would be celebrate.
Woohoo!
So there you go.
One thing we did not do that Rodney pointed out here. So a heat watch, a heat advisory, and a heat warning are different things. And so that people know, get this from the NOAA weather site, excessive heat warnings. Excessive heat warnings are issued within 12 hours of the onset of extremely dangerous heat conditions. The rule of thumb is when the maximum heat index temperature is expected to be 105 degrees or higher for at least 2 days, and nighttime air temperatures will not drop below 75. These criteria do vary across the country, especially for areas not used to extreme heat conditions. Excessive heat watches, in other words, be prepared. Warnings mean take action. Watches mean be prepared. Heat watches are issued when conditions are favorable for excessive heat within the next 24 to 72 hours. Watches issued when the risk of a heat wave is increased, but occurrence and timing still uncertain. Heat advisories are also take action. Heat advisories issued within 12 hours of the onset of extremely dangerous heat conditions. General rule of thumb for advisories is when the maximum heat index temperature is expected to be 100 or higher for at least 2 days, and nighttime air temperatures will not drop below 75. Again, those criteria vary somewhat depending on what part of the country you're in, but it means take action and be prepared for hot temperatures. Excessive heat outlooks, in other words, be aware, potential exists for an excessive heat event within the next 3 to 7 days. So it would be like an SPC outlook, but it would be related to heat.
To heat, yeah.
So let's throw that in before we totally close out, so that people understand what what happens when the Weather Service issues those products.
Cool.
All right. Well, I guess we'll call it a show, and I will. Okay, so how it was we'll go 73 based on who came in first. So Patty first, Franklin second, Rodney, and then me. So go ahead.
All right. Well, I want to wish everybody a happy, healthy summer. Enjoy your time, and be safe about it. Be heat aware, and most of all, have fun. This is 73 from KD08EL.
And I just want to wish everyone a great evening. Hope that everyone enjoyed the program. Hopefully, if you're getting unexpected weather, heat, or anything, take some of our advice, and hopefully it'll help you out and prevent you from getting into a bad situation, which no one ever wants to do that. 73's best wishes to everyone, and hope everyone has a safe rest of their evening.
All right. Again, we want to thank all of our subscribers. I'm kind of maybe taking over Steve's thing here, but like, subscribe, share. We love the interactions. We love the feedback. We want to grow our channel. We want to be that voice for those people who are looking for information, whether it be our little discussions, our little rants, the comic relief, whatever you come for, we're here to hopefully provide something in that realm. So thank you, and we appreciate everybody checking in with us, and we'll see you next week. So 7-3 from K0FZ.
Thank you, guys. And from KA0SPM, live from Studio G in Springfield, Missouri. We really appreciate you guys watching and watching after. So hit that like button, and we will see you on the next one. It doesn't look like it's going to be any sooner than next Thursday, probably, because I don't see any bad weather coming. But anyway, again, it's great to have all of you.
Nice long stretch, maybe some pop-up storms. We're in that summer pattern now, so nothing expected other than maybe some summer pop-ups. So if you have outdoor interests, always be weather aware, because those pop-ups can happen anywhere.
All right. Well, thanks again, and have a great night. KA0SPM saying 73.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.